What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Week 3 edition of MLS 5-A-Side. Again, I'm sorry for a bit of a delay here from being busy in New York with athletic staff and other stuff that comes up here in this crazy job. So it's Wednesday. I know we're a few days now released from the weekend, but here we are. We're 3 games into the season. The table is starting to take a little bit of shape. Very blurry, obviously. Nothing to get too crazy about, but fans are starting to panic, and other fans are starting to think, is it safe for me to actually have hope for a team that I thought was going to be bad, and thus open yourself out to be vulnerable to get hurt again if you start to believe if the team is indeed bad? Things are fun. Let's see how it's going to go for the rest of the season. We got 5 takeaways, but first, got to shout out my folks at Live Breathe Football for this sweet hat. A couple other things. Got some socks over here. Pretty cool. LBF are a wonderful place. Again, support good people doing good things, and that's LBF. I think 10 years ago, I forgot if I was a punk freshman in college, I stumbled upon LBF. I started wearing their stuff, and I loved it. I was at a party as a freshman, and an upperclassman on the women's soccer team I played men's soccer for my school, and an upperclassman on the women's soccer team walked up to me, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm pretty cool. I'm a freshman on the soccer team. What's up?" And because she pointed, she's like, "Oh, like, where'd you get that shirt?" And I was like, "Oh, it's this pretty cool place called Live Breathe Football. Yeah, I found it. Like, yeah, it's pretty cool. No big deal." She's like, "Yeah, my brother's one of the co-founders. Like, how did you find that?" So it's very cool. It's a small world, this soccer stuff. So, again, support good people doing good things. With no further ado, let's get into MLS 5-A-Side for Week 3. Going to stand off to the side here again so we can have a little bit of room for magical graphics to come up here. But number one from the weekend that was, we're going to start a little bit negative here. NYCFC, I think they're in full panic mode. There is, no matter how you analyze it, things are bad. Let's start with the eye test. They've hardly created anything over the first 2 games. It was better for 40 minutes in the game against Portland, and then it was very clearly not better after that. The Portland Timbers got right back into the game and then started dominating the game. Backrard just doesn't look like a difference maker up top. He was living off sides, which in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes you like having forwards getting off sides because they're always kind of challenging the back shoulder. But even when he was off sides, the vast majority of these plays that got to continue to so VAR could check it, he wasn't scoring. He sat down the keeper in the first half and rolled a shot on the floor. Like, he's just not looking like a difference-making center forward in this league. We'll see what Mijatovic looks like, but I think that's part of the reason why the attack is struggling. There's so many talented young players, yes, but not like one central figure that you could rely on. There's no Carlos Hill. There's no even Evander, as you saw the difference that he had for the Portland Timbers in this game. The other attackers, again, had their moments, but it's just a collection of meh in this system. And look, if Hannes Wolf gets hot, if again, I'm a really big believer in Santi Rodriguez, and I thought he played awesome, but it still kind of wasn't enough just in this system. They need something to shake it up to get the most out of this talent. So that's the eye test. If you look at it in data, it looks worse. They have 1 goal in 3 games. That's tied for the fewest in MLS. They have 5 goals against. They have a 2.33 expected goals. That's 23rd in MLS. All of the data kind of matches how meh this team has been to start the season. And 3, which I kind of like to dive into, vibes. The vibes are very, very bad. Let me start with some dueling quotes from their press conference, which, yes, it looks like Keaton Parks, one of their best players, and head coach Nick Cushing are kind of going back and forth at each other. Keaton Parks had this wonderful quote: "I think we have a lot of young guys that don't know how to play for results. We need to grind out effing results and not just back in 1-goal leads and expletive." That's as raw and as real as it gets. You just don't hear that a ton in post-game press conferences. Nick Cushing sniped back at that. He didn't say specifically that it was in response to Keaton Parks or anything, but it feels like it. And I will say, in Nick Cushing's defense, he started his press conference by taking all of the blame on himself. Hey, this is on me. I'm the coach. Everything else. He said everything right. But this quote stuck out to me. "We weren't intense enough in those moments, especially when the ball's coming in midfield with Keaton Parks and Andres Perea. That's why we put in Justin Haak, to get more competition, get more competitive in the middle of the field, because I actually don't think the game was overly tactical." That's him saying, hey, Keaton Parks, you're not tough enough in the midfield to grind out this result. So stop saying it's the young player. Again, that's how I interpreted it. And the game just got worse when they took off an attacker for Justin Haak, another deep-lying midfielder. And they retracted deeper and they couldn't defend deep. Again, it was a moment of magic for Evander. You could look at the XG from this game and you say maybe NYCFC got unlucky, but I don't think that tells the full story. They failed to capitalize on a really good first 35, 40 minutes. Then they got cautious. Then they got, oh crap, is this happening again? What's going on? Let's recede into a shell, hold what we've got. And that's not how this team should play. That's not how this team is built. That's not how this team played under Yanni Dyla, Patrick Vieira, everything else. It's not looking good, and these aren't new questions for Nick Cushing in this group. Five-a-side number 2, San Jose Earthquakes. Yikes, again. They lost at home to the Vancouver Whitecaps 2-0. They weren't threatening. A lot of the things that I've said about NYCFC can kind of work for this team. They have almost an identical expected goals for this season. They have scored 2 goals in 3 games to NYCFC's 1, but it has not looked pretty. And I will point out, myself, and Jeff Ruder wrote a kind of a takeaways piece from the weekend on The Athletic, and we did a little panic rankings and optimism rankings kind of thing. And some San Jose fans reached out to say, hey, like, well, we don't even matter enough to put us in your rankings. And my point was, this is kind of what I expected for this team. Like, it's worse than it could or should be, but them performing not so well at the beginning of the season is not a huge shock, as it kind of, like, NYCFC playing bad, Orlando playing bad, like, that was more of a surprise to me. So, yeah, they weren't included in that ranking because I just don't think that they're very good on the balance of things right now. I will say, I think a lot of the narrative coming around NYCFC has to do with Cushing and the coaching staff and everything else. I think this has to do less with Luchi Gonzalez and his staff and more of the overall quality in the team. Christian Espinoza is a very good player. Amal Pellegrino might be a good signing, but he's a 33-year-old winger coming to a new league. Like, he's looked fine. Jeremy Abobasi is still trying to find that form that he had in 22. So there's a lot more questions in terms of the overall talent here than it is really with NYCFC. San Jose still has a DP spot open. They want to use it on an attacking midfielder, whether it's a second forward or more of a chance creator. The talks for Carlos Vela was real. They had every chance to make that deal done. If they kind of reached agreements, it wasn't just a negotiating ploy for Vela to try to get more money from LAFC. But newsflash, San Jose has to pay more for Carlos Vela than LAFC does. It's just kind of a fact. It's what the two teams are right now. It's Carlos Vela's ties to LAFC. They could have gotten this deal done. A couple people have told me this deal fell apart over some pretty small negotiating points. And if that is the case, if it's as small as what I heard, that is extremely disappointing in deal making for this team. Because look, whether you think that Carlos Vela was the right decision to pursue with this DP spot or not, that's besides the point. The more concerning point for me is they decided that's who they wanted, and they didn't get it done over some pretty small differences. That's a big worry. They still have this DP spot open. Most important to get it right and bring in a good player. And the fortunes of this team, I think, could change. Like, they have a lot of pieces. I like Carlos Guerrero and Jackson Newell in the midfield is nice. Again, Christian Espinoza is very good. The defense is solid. Daniel's starting. It hasn't been a good start to the season for Daniel, but I think he's a very good goalkeeper. So if they get the right DP10 in, that could go paper over a lot of these cracks. And again, like, this is just the reality for a team like San Jose. San Jose, Philly, some other teams like that, they're not going to go out and spend $10 million on Cucho Hernandez or Evander or whatever. And that's fine. You can still compete in this league. But you got to get the deals done. And you got to get the right players in. All right, that was enough negativity for right now. Let's go on the positive side of things. Toronto FC's Italian Renaissance is our number 3 MLS 5-a-side. Toronto beat Charlotte 1-0. It was a Lorenzo Insigne golazo. Charlotte played well, I thought, and they could have won, but better finishing from Toronto's DP, who had a special moment, and Charlotte's DP, Enzo Copetti, didn't. Sometimes that's the difference in MLS, no matter how much we want to analyze it or not. One special moment, a 25-yard strike or whatever from Insigne, and Enzo Copetti, it was a really nice save by Gavran on a one-on-one that he had, and they couldn't take advantage, and that's just what it is. Let's talk about the system in the pass map again. So they've been able to be really fluid in terms of where players are starting and what the formation exactly looks like to suit the players in the group and whoever's on the field at the same time. And I really, really like that, particularly in modern soccer. For this team, they went with Jonathan Osorio as kind of a false 9, and he was more or less dropping in, like Carlos Vela played that role with LAFC. And then Insigne and Bernardeschi were the 2 attackers around him. And that makes a lot of sense. Then there's other games where Bernardeschi started a right wing back, and that's made sense. And then Insigne came off against New England, and Bernardeschi went a little bit further forward. I really like this. Like, again, with the 3 center backs, it gives so much more cover. You can have worse individual center backs in the system because there's another number there. You can have a left back playing left center back who can be more useful in this system than as a left back and a back four. You can have, again, a more limited center back who looks better because of the cover around him. And they play more or less with the double pivot or more box-to-box defense-minded kind of players. And there's a lot more structure. And that allows the right wing back. Look at how high Kobe Franklin is in this game. Again, Federico Bernardeschi playing as a right wing back. He ain't playing that like Yedlin's going to play it for Cincy. He ain't playing that like a defensive-minded player. Richie Larea, whatever side he's on, the MO is going to be get forward and impact the game. You can do that when you have the structure behind you, and that's been really impressive. Pulling up the depth chart, this is what I like so much about this system. And my depth chart looks scatterbrained because it is. What's so good with this system is a lot of players can play a lot of different roles, and you can tweak it based on who's. It does, like, a lot of these aren't like specialized positions in that, oh, Bernardeschi's a right winger and he can only play right wing in our 4-3-3, or go on, right? Like, he can play underneath the striker, and it doesn't matter if that striker is Prince Owusu or it's false nine Jonathan Osorio. He can play right wing back, and then that just means the left wing back is pulling a little bit, or the center mids are shading over on that side, and then he gets to play that like a winger. You look at the back three, you could kind of move players in and out. I think Matty Longstaff is going to be the starting central midfielder for this group, and I think that's going to elevate this group. I am so impressed with how Toronto have looked after 3 games. Again, you can look at the expected goals. You can look at other things. In MLS, if your DPs are special and your structure is good, you're going to pick up points. So, yes, Lorenzo Insigne scored what looks to be, air quote, a low-quality chance to win this game. That's not a low-quality chance for Lorenzo Insigne. That's a low-quality chance for Jonathan Osorio or Kobe Franklin, who do a lot of other things well. But if you have this group as is, if Insigne and Bernardeschi are bought in, and if they're special, this team is going to be very good. And that's what it's been for 3 weeks. And it's been very, very surprising and very impressive. MLS 5-a-side number 4. Atlanta United. This is the group that I expected. This is the performance. And no, Caleb Porter, you were not unlucky. Atlanta United absolutely stormed over New England 4-1 in Atlanta. And despite what Caleb said in his post-game press conference, I don't think it was really that close. Let me just read this quote, get it out of the way for the negativity, and we'll go back to the positive. Caleb Porter goes, "The first half was good. I think we were unlucky to be down 1-0 at halftime. It was a tough goal to give up." Like, that's not the focus here, man. Like, it's just, I get it. That's how you have to spin it as a coach. Try to shift whatever the focus is. Not working on me. I have less patience for this because Caleb Porter's last season with the Columbus Crew, it became a meme. MLS Reddit became a meme in our group chats. Say the line, Caleb. We lost, but we outplayed them. We were unlucky. We should have won. Well, guess what? They missed the playoffs, and then the Crew won MLS Cup last year after he left with a very similar roster. So I don't really have much time for we were unlucky. We should have done. If we finished our chances. Yeah, if you scored every shot that you had, you would have won. Tomas Chancalay had a header from 15 yards out or whatever it was. It was a really nice attempt, hit the crossbar. Sometimes they go in, but hey, more often they don't. So I just don't really have time. What I wanted to talk about was Atlanta United. Yorgos Yakimakis had a hat trick. This team looked much more like what I thought they were going to than what they had been over the first couple weeks. Again, it's not like they've been bad or anything, but a 4-1 win at home, doesn't matter who's coming to town. Again, New England, to be fair, CONCACAF Champions Cup, everything else, heavy legs, whatever. Atlanta United taking care of business, 4-1 win. Yakimakis and Amada were really good. Yakimakis, as I reported this weekend, has kind of entered preliminary talks over a new contract with Atlanta United. There's no urgency here. He's under team control through 2026. He's really happy here. There's a really good relationship between his representation and the club. His reps also rep Stian Gregerson. So the relationships are good. He wants to stay. They want him to stay. They've been, again, loosely talking about a new deal. So we'll see where that goes. But again, nothing to panic about. Atlanta were tsunami. The attack looks so much more fluid. In defense, Stian Gregerson looks like the real deal. I really, really like what I've seen from him so far. I went back and forth with if I was going to pick Atlanta or Orlando City as my Supporters Shield pick this year. And it looks like I chose wrong. It's very early, but the early returns are not good for me. I could go into number 5 and kind of talk about Orlando's suffering once again this weekend, and then once again midweek for CONCACAF Champions Cup. But I think I've talked about that enough, and I think I'm going to continue to talk about that. So let's give Orlando a break and move on to number 5 for a different team. Number 5, CF Montreal is fun, and CF Montreal is competitive. Again, Laurent Courtois has done very well. This team, the front office did really well at putting players in this group that make a lot of sense. They went to Inter Miami, and they won 3-2. Again, we can do the caveats. Miami had CONCACAF Champions Cup, whatever. Well, guess what? Montreal is on a road trip to start the season. Montreal have their own new coach. Montreal are missing players. Yankov wasn't able to start. Opoku is out. You kind of go on down the list. It's been very good what this team has done to start the season. I thought this game was a really good balance of what I like so much about this team. They have their pretty moments, the ones that we were hoping when you hire somebody from Wilfred Nancy's Columbus Crew and Laurent Courtois and everything that he stands for as a coach and his philosophies. But they also had pragmatic moments. Scoring on set pieces, right? Defending really hard, defending really well. Understanding when it's time to really step on the gas and take risks and when maybe it's not. So they did a really good balance, and that's what they've done to start the season. And I think Courtois is smart enough. Like, this is a basic thing, but results help you get more time to put in your ideal system and vision and 100% of what you want. You can't, new coaches take over. I've spoken to enough of them, particularly this offseason, because there was 10 changes. There's a million things you want to do. You got to start at the beginning of the season getting the foundation right. And I think Montreal got the foundation right, both tactically, both in what they're prioritizing, and some of the signings they made. I really like it. Again, I said it recently. Kokoro, he seems to be like a really fun player to play with up top. Again, I don't think he's going to score 18 to 20 goals. Like, he's not going to be like a Yakumakis. But, man, I think he makes the players around him better, and that just fits very well from CF Montreal. They have 7 points to start the season, all 3 road games. Last year, they had a grand total of 8 points on the road. That's the game right there, man. All right, that'll do it for me today. MLS 5-a-side. Week 3 is in the books. Again, we're going to try next week to come back with Week 4 on Monday. But, hey, you never know. I'm going to keep you guys on your toes, and comes when it comes. Whatever. Appreciate it. We'll be back in soon.